The night was bright with fireworks, laughter, and the sound of drums echoing through the air. Guests were dancing, children were chasing balloons, and the bride and groom stood smiling under a canopy of lights. It was a perfect wedding night. Until one sound changed everything. In a single gunshot, music turned into silence, joy into screams, and celebration into chaos. Nobody knew that beneath the shimmer of love and tradition, a silent obsession had been waiting to explode. The story begins in the city of Bhopal, the heart of Madhya Pradesh, known for its calm lakes and green neighborhoods. In the Karand area lived the Namdev family. Father Ghanshyam, Mother Lakshmi, and their only daughter, Dr. Jaishree Namdev. They were a respected family. Simple, hard-working, and financially stable. Ghanshyam worked for the Madhya Pradesh Electricity Board, while Lakshmi managed the household. Their daughter Jaishri was the pride of their lives, brilliant, compassionate, and ambitious. From a young age, Jaishri had dreamed of becoming a doctor. Her parents encouraged her every step of the way. After completing her schooling, she cleared her pre-medical exams and earned admission to Gandhi Medical College, Bhopal, for her MBBS. Later, she pursued post-graduation in pediatrics from Jabalpur Medical College. By her mid-20s, Jaishri had become a well-known pediatrician at Hamidia Hospital in Bhopal. Her patients loved her warmth, and her colleagues admired her discipline. She was living the dream her parents once had for her. In the same hospital worked another doctor, Dr. Jaishree Namdev, a junior surgeon. Coincidentally, both shared the same last name, though they were unrelated. Rohit was a confident and kind man from the Khandwa district, where his father served in the irrigation department. Because of their matching surnames, colleagues often joked that they should get married. What began as workplace banter soon planted a thought in both families. They were both from respectable families, both doctors, and both ready to settle down. So talks of marriage began. When Ghanshyam Namdev discovered that a boy from his community worked in the same hospital as his daughter, he looked into the match. After some discussion between both families, the proposal was accepted. It was not a love marriage, but an arranged one, blessed by tradition and trust. Jaishri and Rohit already knew each other professionally and respected one another deeply. The engagement was held on February 3, 2014, attended by close family and friends. The wedding date was fixed for May 8, 2014. A day that everyone awaited with excitement, unaware that it would soon be cursed forever. The Namdev family made grand preparations for the wedding. Invitations were sent to hundreds of people, relatives, friends, colleagues, and respected figures of Bhopal. The venue chosen was the beautiful Sundarban Kohinoor Marriage Hall in Lalgati, a place famous for its glittering wedding nights. On that May evening, as the city lit up with processions and bands, the hall glowed with happiness. Guests began arriving around 8 p.m., and by 11 the grand Jaimala ceremony, the ritual of exchanging garlands, was about to begin. Jaishri looked radiant in her bridal attire, while Rohit stood proudly beside her. Cameras flashed, relatives cheered, and the band played romantic songs in the background. Amidst the crowd, no one noticed a man who had quietly entered the venue from the back gate. He had been there for nearly an hour, moving unnoticed among the guests. Dressed simply with a white scarf around his neck, he blended into the crowd. To everyone, he seemed like just another guest, but in his eyes burned something dark, something that had been growing for years. As the garland ceremony began, Jaishri lifted her hands to place the floral necklace around Rohit's neck. The hall filled with cheers. Then it was Rohit's turn. Just as he placed the garland on her, the unknown man stepped onto the stage, pretending to pose for a photo. In one swift motion, he pulled out a country-made pistol from his waist. Before anyone could react, a loud gunshot tore through the music. Jaishri fell instantly, blood staining her bridal dress. For a moment, the entire hall froze in disbelief. Laughter turned into horror. People screamed. Some ducked, others ran. Rohit, shocked but quick, tried to grab the man's hand before he could shoot again. But another shot rang out. This time, one of Rohit's friends, a Kachrus Hisoida, was hit and collapsed to the floor. Chaos spread across the venue. Guests jumped over chairs, women cried, and children screamed. Yet somehow a few men managed to catch the attacker. They beat him mercilessly, snatched away his gun, and held him down until the police arrived. Rohit rushed to help Jaishri, still hoping she would survive. Ambulances arrived within minutes. Jaishri was taken to Suditi Hospital, while Kachru was sent to Hamidia Hospital. The man who had fired the shots was barely conscious after the crowd's assault. He was left lying on the ground until police finally arrived. Moments later, the wedding venue that once echoed with music was filled with flashing sirens, police vans, and blood. Within an hour, what was supposed to be the happiest night of two families had turned into a crime scene. When doctors at Suditi Hospital examined Jaishri, they declared her dead on arrival. The bullet had struck her neck, a fatal wound. News spread like wildfire. Her parents, relatives, and even hospital colleagues rushed in, devastated. The groom's family was in shock too. But what shocked everyone even more was what happened next. The groom's family quietly left the city that very night, returning to Khandwa. They didn't stay for Jaishri's final rites, not even for her post-mortem. People began to whisper. Why would a man who claimed to love her so deeply walk away so quickly? The following day, police identified the shooter. He was not a stranger, not even an outsider. His name was Anurag Namdev, a 30-year-old man from Gadakota Sagar district, and he was Jaishri's own cousin, her maternal aunt's son. The revelation stunned everyone. The man who had once lived with Jaishri's family for years, who had eaten at their table, who was treated like a son, had been the one to pull the trigger. But why? What drove a once-loved family member to travel 230 kilometers on a bike, sneak into a wedding, and commit such an unthinkable act? The answer lay buried deep within years of suppressed emotions, unspoken love, and a dangerous obsession that had crossed every moral line. What the police would soon uncover next would not only break hearts, it would shake the entire community's faith in family itself. When the police revealed that the man behind the gun was not a stranger but Jaishri's own cousin, everyone stood stunned. Whispers turned into murmurs, and murmurs into disbelief. How could someone raised within the same family, someone Jaishri tied Rakhi to every year, become her killer? The man who once called her Didi had taken her life in front of hundreds of witnesses. The name of that man was Anurag Namdev, a 30-year-old banker from the small town of Gadakota. But behind his quiet face hid years of obsession and heartbreak that had slowly turned into madness. Anurag was the son of Ghanshyam's younger sister, Anguri Bai, His father Ramji had died of cancer when Anurag was still young. After the loss, his family fell into financial trouble. Out of kindness and family duty, Ghanshyam had supported his sister and her children. He helped them with money, with education, and even offered to take Anurag under his care. Around 2005, a teenage Anurag moved to Bhopal to live with his uncle's family for further studies. What began as a simple act of generosity would soon become the biggest mistake of their lives. At that time, Jaishri was also studying medicine. She treated Anurag like her younger brother. She cared for him when he fell sick, guided him through exams, and shared meals with him at the same table. But while Jaishri's affection came from a place of pure sisterly love, something entirely different began to grow inside Anurag. In his eyes, the warmth of a sister began turning into the desire of a lover. Over the years, as he shared the same home with her, that love evolved into an unhealthy obsession, one that he could neither control nor confess properly. After completing his studies, Anurag cleared his banking exams and was appointed as a probationary officer at HDFC Bank in Sagar. Everyone in the family was proud of him, especially Jaishri, who was happy to see her cousin finally find success. But distance didn't cool his feelings. In fact, it made them stronger. Whenever Anurag visited Bhopal, he would look for reasons to see Jaishri, sometimes bringing gifts, sometimes staying a few extra days at her house. Slowly, his affection turned into an emotional trap, one that existed only in his mind. One evening, he finally gathered courage and confessed his feelings to Jaishri. "I love you, Jaya. I want to marry you," he said. Jaishri was shocked. For her, Anurag was family, and her cousin someone she tied Rakhi to every year. She tried to explain gently, "You're like my brother, Anurag. Please don't say such things," but he refused to listen. What Jaishri thought would fade away with time instead became an unstoppable storm. Anurag began calling her repeatedly, sending messages and showing up unexpectedly at her workplace. It wasn't love anymore, it was fixation. It was when Jaishri realized the situation was slipping out of control. She told her parents everything. Her father, Ghanshyam, was heartbroken and furious. The boy he had raised like a son had betrayed his trust. Still, he couldn't bear to expose the family shame publicly. Instead of filing a police complaint, he chose to handle it privately. He called his sister Anguri, Anurag's mother, and pleaded with her to talk sense into her son. Anguri, deeply embarrassed, promised to fix the issue. She scolded Anurag, warning him to stay away from his cousin. For a short time, it seemed he listened, but silence only hid his growing rage. Anurag's obsession soon began poisoning his mind. He started reading romantic poetry, posting sad quotes online, and listening to heartbreaking songs late into the night. Then one day, everything changed. On February 5, 2014, while scrolling through Facebook, he saw a post that shattered his world. Jaishri had gotten engaged to Dr. Jaishree Namdev. The pictures showed them smiling together, exchanging rings. The caption read, "Engaged to Dr. Jaishree Namdev." Within seconds, his mind erupted in fury. The woman he believed was meant for him was now someone else's bride. That night, Anurag called his uncle in rage, shouting, "Stop this wedding! She belongs to me, if you don't be ready for the consequences." His words were venomous, but Ghanshyam didn't respond in anger. He simply hung up, heartbroken that the boy he once loved now sounded like a stranger. Jaishri too received calls and threats from Anurag, but she chose to remain calm. She informed Rohit about everything, believing honesty would make their relationship stronger. Rohit promised to protect her no matter what. Still, the family decided not to invite Anurag to the wedding. They feared his unpredictable behavior might cause chaos. But Anurag didn't give up. His obsession turned into a deadly mission. Weeks before the wedding, he began plotting something unimaginable. He started practicing with a locally made pistol that he bought for 17,000 rupees from a man named Kuldeep. On Facebook, he changed his profile picture to a red background with the words, "Just wait and watch." He stopped talking to his friends, stopped going out, and lived in his own dark world. The people around him thought he was heartbroken, but they didn't know how far he was willing to go to prove his twisted love. On May 8, 2014, the day of the wedding, Anurag borrowed a friend's motorcycle and began a 230-kilometer journey from Sagar to Bhopal. He rode through the heat, dust, and pain, his mind burning with thoughts of revenge. That evening, as thousands celebrated under the wedding lights, he quietly parked his bike near the Sundarban Kohinoor marriage hall. No one recognized him, not even his own relatives. He walked through the crowd like a shadow, waiting for the right moment. And when he saw Jaishri placing the garland around Rohit's neck, something inside him snapped forever. The wedding that was supposed to mark the beginning of a new life became the scene of an ending. In one moment, Anurag destroyed everything: Jaishri's dreams, Rohit's future, and two families' honor. But what haunted everyone afterward was not just the crime, but the coldness that followed. When the police questioned Anurag, he didn't cry. He didn't beg. Instead, he asked one question: "Is Jaya alive?" And when they told him she was gone, he smiled faintly and whispered, "Good. Now she will belong to no one." His lack of remorse terrified even the officers. During interrogation, he laughed, shouted, and sometimes cried without warning. It was as if the man's mind had fractured completely. But there was more to uncover, because his final plan was even darker. He told the police, "If they hadn't caught me that night, I would have shot Rohit next, and then myself." The officers realized this was never an act of impulse. It was premeditated revenge born from years of obsession and twisted love. Meanwhile, questions began to rise about Rohit's behavior. Why did he and his family leave the city the same night? Why didn't he attend Jaishri's funeral? Why did he delete all her photos from Facebook within 2 days? People began to wonder. Was he afraid, or was there something he didn't want to face? The public outrage grew, but for Jaishri's parents, only silence remained. They had lost everything: their only daughter, their peace, and even their faith in family bonds. But justice was only beginning to unfold. The police had to prove that this wasn't just a crime of passion. It was murder in cold blood. With multiple eyewitnesses, CCTV footage, and Anurag's confession, they built their case. Yet the courtroom battle that followed would reveal more shocking truths, exposing not only Anurag's mind, but also the indifference of the people who once claimed to love Jaishri. When the case finally reached court, the air around Bhopal buzzed with tension. Everyone knew the facts: a bride shot dead on her wedding night by her own cousin. Yet the reality felt too cruel to believe. The courtroom was packed when Anurag was brought in, handcuffed, head bowed, his expression blank. He didn't look like a man haunted by guilt. He looked like someone who thought he had done something righteous. Across the room sat Jaishree's parents, faces pale, eyes hollow, still wearing the same grief that had frozen their lives since that night. For them, this wasn't just about punishment. It was about justice for their only daughter. As the trial began, the prosecution laid out a chilling narrative. They presented CCTV footage showing Anurag entering the venue through the back gate, waiting near the stage, and then firing the fatal shot. Witness after witness stepped forward, guests who had seen him at the scene, men who had grabbed him after the shooting, even hospital staff who heard his eerie laughter afterward. Each testimony painted the same picture. A man who had planned every detail, right down to how he would die after killing Jaishri. But fate, it seemed, had denied him even that. When it was Anurag's turn to speak, his behavior shocked everyone. He denied everything. He claimed he had been attacked by Jaishri's relatives at the wedding, that the gun had gone off by accident during the scuffle. He said the police framed him to protect someone else. His story made no sense, yet he told it with the calm confidence of a man who believed his own lies. Even the judge watched him carefully, perhaps trying to understand whether he was insane or simply evil. The defense tried to argue that Anurag was mentally unstable, driven to madness by unrequited love. But the prosecution countered with proof that his actions were deliberate. They showed his social media posts, his purchase of the pistol, his journey from Sagar to Bhopal, all pointing to one conclusion. This was not an impulsive act, but a calculated murder. His obsession had not been love, it had been control. When he couldn't possess Jaishri in life, he decided that no one else should either. Throughout the hearings, one face was missing: Dr. Rohit. The man who was supposed to spend his life with Jaishri never once appeared in court. Not to testify, not to console her parents, not even to light her funeral pyre. The same man who had written online, "It hurts when the one you love dies in your arms," had deleted every photo, every memory within 2 days of the tragedy. His silence became louder than words, leaving people to wonder. Did he truly love her? Or had he simply moved on? On February 11th, 2015, the court pronounced its verdict. Jaishree Namdev was found guilty of murder under Section 302 of the Indian Penal Code. The judge sentenced him to life imprisonment and imposed a fine of 15,000 rupees. In his final statement, the judge said, "This was not an act of passion, but a betrayal of trust, a crime against family, against love, and against humanity." Jaishri's parents broke down in tears. For them, it wasn't victory, it was closure carved out of pain. Their daughter would never come back, but at least the man who ended her life would spend his behind bars. Still, Ghanshyam and Lakshmi weren't satisfied. To them, life imprisonment wasn't enough. "He should never breathe the same air as the living," her father said outside the courthouse. They filed an appeal in the Madhya Pradesh High Court seeking a death sentence. But on August 28, 2015, the High Court dismissed their plea. The judges ruled that while the crime was horrific, it did not fall under the rarest of rare category. Anurag's life sentence remained. Justice, though delivered, felt incomplete. Inside Sagar Central Jail, Anurag became a silent figure, withdrawn, cold, and unreadable. Years passed, and the world outside forgot his name. But in May 2019, 5 years after the murder, his story took one final turn. The prison authorities granted him parole for 15 days to visit his aging mother. He went home quietly, stayed in his old room, and barely spoke to anyone. On June 12th, just hours before he was supposed to return to prison, his mother found him hanging by a towel inside his room. It was 5 a.m. The man who once claimed he'd rather die than live without Jaishri had finally kept his word. Years too late, when no one cared anymore. When the news of his death reached the authorities, a strange silence spread. Some said it was karma, others said it was a tragic end to a disturbed soul. But for Jaishri's parents, there was no satisfaction. Only the reminder that both their daughter and their nephew were now gone. 2 families ruined, 2 lives wasted, and one question still echoing in everyone's minds. Could all this have been prevented? Dr. Rohit, the groom who lost his bride that night, was never seen again in public. He continued his medical career quietly, far away from Bhopal. For years he never spoke about Jaishri. Some believe guilt kept him silent. Others think fear did. On social media, he erased her completely, as if she had never existed. But those who had once seen them together could never forget the look on Jaishri's face, the glow of a woman who thought her life was finally falling into place. Time moved on, but the memory of that night remained. The marriage hall was repainted, renamed, and new couples celebrated their love under the same roof where Jaishri took her last breath. Yet for anyone who knew her story, that place would forever feel cursed. A reminder that love, when twisted by obsession, can turn even blood into enemies and celebrations into funerals. The case of Dr. Jaishree Namdev is not just the story of a murder. It's the story of love gone wrong, of a family destroyed by silence, and of a society that still struggles to see the signs of obsession before it's too late. Her life was a symbol of compassion, her death a warning. And so as you finish hearing this story, one question lingers. In a world where love and madness often wear the same face, how do we tell the difference before it's too late?